Welcome back to Canuck Aviation here in Abbotsford, British Columbia, Canada. I'm going to be playtesting Axis and Allies 1941 Deluxe mod by Dan Philbrick. This is just a custom game, so it's based on the 1941 map with a couple AA guns and artillery and a couple bombers and cruisers added, but the rules for it are more like the 1942 version. And then also unit prices are way cheaper. So an infantry only costs 1 IPC, so you can still have lots of units. And like an artillery is like $2 and so on. So it's supposed to speed it up, but also have a lot more units than the normal 1941 edition. So here's round 1 coming up. A couple of thoughts on this game are that I think I may need to change the turn order with Germany and Russia, having Germany go first, because when the Russians attack West Russia here, the Germans cannot effectively counterattack from Eastern Europe and Ukraine, because the Russians can have about 7 more infantry coming from Caucasus and Russia, which can counterattack that easily, and the Germans will not have the numbers at the beginning to fight that. So either I'll change the turn order, or I may give the Germans a few more infantry or something to start with to try and counter that. But other than that, it was very fun. It was fast-paced, as this version is, but with lots of units, so it was a lot more enjoyable. And here are all the unit costs. This is the end of round 1. Russia purchased 7 infantry on Caucasus. They attacked West Russia, took that, as well as they strafed Ukraine, killed all but 2 tanks, and then retreated back to Caucasus, and moved an AA gun into Caucasus as well as West Russia, moved their sub into C-Zone 6, and ended with 10 IPCs. Germany purchased 6 artillery on Germany. They attacked the British Navy in C-Zone 8. The sub decided to submerge, but they lost the submarine, but kept the battleship. Attacked Karelia, and they also took out Egypt. Landed their planes in North Africa, but the British took them out, and then the Americans took North Africa. And they ended with 13 IPCs. The British bought 4 subs, 2 off India and 2 off Australia. Both of them were shot down by Japanese boats. They were able to kill 1 sub off the coast of Australia. They moved their cruiser from C-Zone 26 to 28, as well as transport from India. Moved their Union of South Africa infantry up to Belgian Congo. And that's about all for the British. The Japanese purchased 1 infantry on Japan and a minor complex on coastal China. They took Szechuan, and they also took the Philippines. They attacked Manchuria, which had 3 Russian infantry and 1 artillery, and lost everyone that they sent in, as well as killed everyone. So that's all for the Japanese. The Americans purchased a carrier and a fighter, and brought over their fighter from the East Coast. That's all for this side. On this side of the map, they brought their transport and destroyer to North Africa, as well as sent a bomber into London. Japan ended with 9 IPCs, Great Britain 12, and the Americans 15. Here's round 2 coming up. This is the end of round 2. Russia purchased 5 artillery on Russia. They attacked Ukraine and sent their Caucasus force into West Russia. Their bomber and fighter attacked the German destroyer and transport in C-Zone 17, killed them both with no loss. Also sent a infantry into the Middle East, just to block that tank that was in Egypt from blitzing. Moved their sub down to C-Zone 14, and ended with 10 IPCs. Germany purchased 1 infantry and 4 tanks on Germany, and sent their artillery from Germany into Eastern Europe, as well as their Karelia force joins them there. So they're going to try and take West Russia, possibly this round. And also took their tank down into Belgian Congo. And they ended with 12 IPCs. The British bought 1 infantry on United Kingdom, as well as 6 infantry on India, and 6 in Australia. And they took back Szechuan for the Americans, as well as brought their ships from Sea Zone 28 to 26, and landed in infantry in Norway/Finland, and ended with 13 IPCs. And they also sunk the Bismarck battleship in Sea Zone 8, with the loss of a carrier. The Japanese purchased 8 infantry on coastal China. They took Borneo and East Indies, sent their bomber to coastal China, and the rest of their carriers, battleship, and cruiser off the coast of the Philippines, and a couple of destroyers into Sea Zone 30. They ended with 10 IPCs, their personal high so far. And the Americans purchased a battleship and a destroyer, saved 1 IPC, sent their fighters into Hawaii, and sent their North Africa force into Anglo-Egyptian Sudan, sent their transport back to the east coast to load up again, tried bombing Germany, but rolled 6, so that's a miss, because you need a 3 or less to get it. This is the end of round 3. Russia purchased 5 artillery on Caucasus, pulled everyone but an infantry from Ukraine and West Russia back to Caucasus. They bombed coastal China for 1 IPC. And the Germans purchased 4 tanks and an infantry on Germany, moved an infantry from Western Europe into Germany, and infantry from Southern Europe into Eastern Europe, and then moved the Germany infantry into Eastern Europe along with the fighter. The fighter sunk the UK transport that was in Sea Zone 6, and then moved everyone else into West Russia. The tank came down and took Union of South Africa, but the Americans took care of him. And then for the British, they purchased 1 infantry on UK, sent their bomber to bomb Berlin, but missed. Moved their transport, that's going to be coming back to UK this turn. Moved their cruiser down here off the coast of Madagascar. Purchased 2 fighters on India. And moved their force from Szechuan into Caucasus, as well as their Finland infantry into Karelia. Japanese bought 4 artillery on coastal China. They took Manchuria back finally. Also took out Szechuan, and they moved their fleet off the coast of coastal China. They tried bombing India but missed. The Americans purchased 3 destroyers on the west coast, moved everyone to Wake Island that they could, and moved a destroyer down with the cruiser off the coast of Madagascar. Landed a couple more guys in North Africa. They also tried bombing Berlin, but they were shot down by the AA. Round 4 coming up. This is the end of round 4. Russia purchased 5 artillery and 1 infantry on Caucasus. They attacked West Russia with a stack of infantry, artillery, fighter, and a bomber. And they took it over with 6 artillery, 2 AA guns, and the fighter and bomber. And they ended with 9 IPCs. The Germans purchased 2 infantry, 3 tanks on Germany. They attacked West Russia, took it over with 2 tanks remaining. And that's all for the Germans. UK purchased a factory in Finland/Norway and 2 infantry in India. They took Eastern Europe to cut off those tanks from West Russia. Moved their transport off the coast of Canada and moved their cruiser to Australia. And that's all for the British. The Japanese purchased 2 tanks on coastal China. and 1 infantry on Japan, and a fighter off the coast of Japan. They took northwest China. They're going to try and get Russia in the back or take Caucasus. Either or will help Germany. And they put a destroyer into Sea Zone 38 to block the Americans from trying to land in coastal China if they wanted to. And then the Americans purchased 2 destroyers and moved the rest of their destroyers to Wake Island with the rest of the Navy. And also moved their transport back to the east coast. Purchased a infantry and artillery as well to load back up. And took back Union of South Africa for the British. And moved their guys from North Africa into Egypt. That's all for this round. It's the end of round 5. Russia purchased 6 infantry on Caucasus and attacked West Russia with an infantry and an artillery. Took that back. And I forgot to put a blocker in Urals and left Moscow open, so the Japanese tank in northwest China was able to just blitz in there and take that. So I completely forgot about that, which is kind of silly, but yep. The Germans purchased 2 infantry and 3 tanks on Germany again, and took back Eastern Europe from the British. And that's all for them. The British purchased 1 tank in Finland, as well as a destroyer and submarine off of India. They took Southwest Asia from the Japanese and brought their fighters into Caucasus. And that's all for them. The Japanese purchased 2 destroyers, a submarine, and an infantry on coastal China. And they attacked Caucasus with all they had, killed all the infantry, and left 1 artillery and all the planes, but lost everything else. Came in with like 8 infantry, 4 artillery, 2 tanks, and a bomber. And then they ended with 25 IPCs because of the Russian money that they captured. The Americans brought their destroyers to Wake Island. They attacked the Philippines destroyer, Sun Kim, with no loss against them. They took Borneo and moved their destroyer that traveled around Africa to help protect him. Moved their Egypt guys into the Middle East, landed a couple more guys into North Africa, and purchased a battleship and a transport on DC. That's all for round 5. This is the end of round 6. Russia, no bias, they didn't have Moscow last round. They attacked Moscow with 2 artillery and their planes, killed the 1 tank and lost an artillery, left an infantry in West Russia, but he was killed by the Germans. Germany purchased 2 tanks and 2 infantry on Germany. They took back West Russia, moved 2 infantry to Eastern Europe. That's all for them. The British put a tank in Karelia and bought another tank in Norway/Finland, as well as they bought a cruiser to go with their transport so they can give it a little protection. And then they sent their fighters into Moscow, and they held tight in Sichuan this round. They moved their boats into the Philippine Sea Zone, but they were all shot down by the Japanese. The Japanese purchased 1 infantry and 8 tanks on coastal China. They attacked the Philippines fleet, took them all out. There were 3 subs, 1 destroyer, and 1 cruiser, with not 1 hit against them. And that's all for the Japanese. The Americans purchased 4 subs on the west coast. They attacked the Japanese fleet in Hawaii, or the Philippines, I mean. Killed them all, and still had 2 carriers and 4 fighters. They took back Borneo for the British. They landed a AA in North Africa again with their new battleship and transport, and purchased an infantry on the east coast. And that's all for this round. Other than the Middle East, Americans moved into Caucasus. So for the Axis, they need to take Russia and hold it for a round, but with no navy left. It's gonna be hard. Here it comes. End of round 7. Russia purchased 6 infantry on Moscow, and that's all for them. Germany purchased 2 infantry and 3 tanks on Germany, and took back West Russia with an infantry, 3 tanks, and fighter. Or they didn't take it, but just landed there. Sent a couple infantry from Germany into Eastern Europe. And that's all the Germans. The British bought 2 transports off the coast of UK and a tank in Norway. That's all for the British. The Japanese purchased 4 tanks and 2 infantry on coastal China and moved into northwest China with 8 tanks and 2 infantry. Gonna get into Russia with the Germans. Hopefully close win for the Axis. The Americans purchased 2 transports, 2 infantry, and 2 artillery on the west coast. And they took back the Philippine Islands and then sent some guys from Caucasus into Moscow. So here comes round 8. Moscow may fall or it may hold. Here it comes. End of round 8. Russia purchased 4 infantry on Moscow, and that would be all for them. Germany purchased 2 infantry and 3 tanks again, and sent their tanks and infantry into West Russia. They used a tank to blitz Karelia and Archangel, but then the British took out the tank and took back Karelia. The British purchased 3 artillery and 3 infantry on London to go with those transports to unload maybe on Germany or somewhere to cause grief to them. The Japanese purchased 5 infantry on coastal China, as well as 3 infantry and then 10 infantry on Japan. The Americans invaded coastal China with an infantry, tank, and 4 fighters. Killed all the infantry but lost both ground units, so decided to retreat. And then the Americans also purchased 2 bombers. End of round 9. Russia purchased 4 more infantry on Moscow, nothing else. Germany purchased 10 infantry on Germany, saved 3 IPCs, moved their infantry from Germany into Eastern Europe, and then tanks and infantry from Eastern Europe and Germany into West Russia. They attacked Russia, took out some guys, lost everything they sent, and then the Japanese attacked them, killed all but a tank and 3 fighters. So this round should seal it for the Axis, I think. If not, then they will lose within like 2 rounds. The British landed in Eastern Europe with 3 infantry and 3 artillery. Didn't lose a thing. And what did they buy? I think I forgot to place their buy. Okay, I found their buy. They got 5 tanks on India. And that's all for the British. The Japanese purchased 2 infantry and 2 tanks on coastal China, and then 2 tanks in Caucasus. And they also attacked Russia and lost everything they sent there. The Americans purchased 2 infantry on the west coast and 1 bomber on the east coast, and then sent the rest of their bombers into France with the infantry and artillery already there. And they also bought a factory in France. In round 10, Russia purchased 4 infantry on Moscow, and then nothing else. Germany attacked Moscow, killed a few infantry, but lost 2 infantry and their 3 tanks that were sent in there. And then the British, I didn't buy anything because the game was over anyways, because the Japanese tried taking Moscow, but killed 2 infantry and then lost both tanks, so there's still a tank and 3 fighters there, which there's no other Axis units coming in, so that seals the deal there. So thanks for watching, and I'll see if I can get another game in a couple days. See you later.